now on Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. Memorial Day is upon us.
And while the day can strike a celebratory tone among many Americans,
it is important to be able to celebrate life and be grateful for the things that we do have because of those people that sacrifice.
For others, it's a reminder of the ultimate sacrifice so many have made in honor of our country.
But I think it is also important to remember why we have this day.
I think it's a time to honor those who sacrificed for our country.
we're hearing from service members about what the day means to them and share their stories of resilience and heroism.
Welcome to Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. I'm Denver7's Micah Smith.
And I'm Colorado Public Radio's Nathan Fernando Frescas. Each week, in a partnership between Denver7 and CPR, we have a real talk about issues impacting underrepresented people across Colorado and amplifying voices you may not always hear.
Memorial Day is a federal holiday held on the last Monday of the month to honor servicemen and women who have died during peacetime and war. While many Americans view the day as a day off from work or school, for members of the armed forces, it can be a solemn time.
The holiday was first called Decoration Day, when loved ones of fallen service members placed flowers on the graves of those who had fallen, and the first observance was held at Arlington National Cemetery on May 30th, 1868.
According to the U.S. Defense Department, the U.S. currently has more than 2 million service members. The latest statistics show the number of women serving in the military has steadily increased since 2005 and now stands at about 17.7% as of 2023. And joining us now is Hope Sapolsky, MSU Denver Dean of the College of Health and Applied Sciences, who is a retired Army nurse. Hope, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My first question for you is, why did you choose to serve?
I guess the biggest reason is social mobility. I saw the military as an opportunity to travel, get the leadership experience, get the training opportunities, and get the cultural experience. And so I took that advantage of that and joined the Army right out of nursing school.
And so with that, it's you know, you're saving lives, but you also have to be prepared to go into battle and do other things. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. And
so talk a little bit about that connection between saving lives and saving members of the military who may have been injured and also being, in a war possibly.
Right, so you do have to do your normal nursing training, do your normal nursing duties, but you always had to do the training if you had needed to go into battle, and that was on a regular basis. You were always maintaining those skills if the time came where you had to actually go and move into a different role. Usually you stayed as a nurse, but there were opportunities that you had to explore and go into different roles.
I can only imagine some of the things you've experienced. When you think about your time in the military, what are some of your fondest and even some of your toughest memories?
The camaraderie, the friends you meet, the different places you get to go to travel. The toughest experiences, I would have to say, were the trainings were tough. After 9/11, the landscape changed for the military, for me and for a lot of people. Training became more often, more intense, and leaving the family was really, really difficult. You were on the move all the time.
As we mentioned earlier in the show, statistics show in recent years we've seen an increase in women serving in the military. What do you think about that?
I think that's exciting. I see that they see the opportunity for leadership in the career ladder, opportunities that the military offers, and the different disciplines that the military offers for women. I think it's exciting.
This episode is about Memorial Day, of course, and I have to ask, as someone with so much experience, what does Memorial Day mean to you?
When I think of Memorial Day, I tend to reflect on my own personal experience in the military, but I also have a lot of family members who served in the military, so I do like to reflect on their service. And then my friends and the ones who have fallen for our country. So I think it's a time to honor those who sacrificed for our country.
You have friends who fell in service?
Not necessarily my friends who fell, but you always think about when you were deployed, some individuals who have fallen and stuff, and then my family members, yes.
Yeah. And Memorial Day was started to honor those who made that ultimate sacrifice. Is there a particular military hero who comes to mind for you, especially on Memorial Day?
I would have to say my uncle. He served under Patton.
Wow,
so
okay,
yeah, in South Africa, so yeah, he was one that fallen during the military.
That is incredible. As the dean of a school at MSU Denver, How has your service kind of played into your career and how you interact with students now?
Oh, 100% has played into my career. I would not be where I'm at without the military. The leadership skills that it provided for me has brought me to where I am today. And how I'm able to interact with the students is the different culture and the experiences I've had. I'm just able to meet anybody at any level. So.
Can you go deeper into that? Because I do think it's so interesting that, you know, so many members of the military maybe sometimes can't find work, or maybe there's like a stepping stone they have to fall up into. Can you talk a little bit about how that transition was, going from the military into civil service and being a dean of a school?
You know, it was kind of difficult at first. I would say there's about a year. It takes a while to transition into the civil, what am I trying to say?
Just the work life, essentially, outside of the military.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many. The military is pretty rigid, and you have to follow certain rules. And it was a little difficult for me to adjust to not having those boundaries, and I guess to the people around me and how they how I perceived them. It was really difficult, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself having kind of a special bond or connection to students who are veterans?
Absolutely. I do tend to connect with them. They do tend to seek me out and ask for my experience, and if they want to move further in their career after they've graduated, they always ask for my personal opinion on what they should do. So yeah, they do kind of seek me out.
Yeah.
And what would you say to somebody who is active duty right now but getting ready to transition into civilian life and maybe just needs that boost of confidence or hope because they know that the transition can be long or tough?
I would have to say they're going to be fine. There will be a short period. It can be longer for others to adjust, but you're able to make friends easy when you're in the military, and you're going to be able to carry those skills that you brought with you into the civilian sector. So it's going to be, and there's so many opportunities in the civilian sector, and you're going to be able to connect with other individuals who are in the military. So we're still out there, we're just veterans now, so we're just not active duty anymore.
I was going to say, sounds like a big community.
Yeah, it is a big community.
And one big family. Well, I want to thank you so much for your service and all that you're doing at MSU Denver and all the lives that I know you continue to touch. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hope Sapolsky, MSU Denver Dean of the College of Health and Applied Sciences and retired Army nurse. Thank you so much for joining us. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
And there is more to come on this episode of Real Talk, honoring service members on Memorial Day.
Coming up, a student veteran is joining us to talk about her time in the Navy and what Memorial Day means to her. This is Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. Welcome back to Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. I'm Nathan Fernando Frescas.
And I'm Denver7's Micah Smith. Memorial Day can often be viewed as the kickoff to summer and a celebratory time to spend with loved ones.
But for some members of our military, it's a reminder of the many sacrifices veterans and active duty service members make to ensure our freedoms.
You may remember we did a Real Talk episode for Veterans Day not too long ago, and we heard from a lot of our viewers and listeners who told us they wanted to hear from more women veterans.
Well, we have you covered. We just heard from Hope, and now we have a student veteran joining us. MSU Denver social worker, student, Navy veteran, and health scholar, Santasia Jovel. Welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Now, you're majoring in social work, and you want to use your degree to help veterans. How do you plan to do that?
So I can't say that my path is super set in concrete currently. Essentially, I wanted to start in the VA because I do believe it's very needed. But thankfully to grateful mentors at MSU Denver, they're kind of inviting me to maybe think outside the box, and I actually am considering possibly re-enlisting as an officer and pursuing social work that way.
Yeah.
That is incredible. What initially inspired you to join the Navy?
You know, I kind of wish that I had a little bit more of an inspiring story and say that something drew me. I just knew I wanted to be a part of something, and Navy recruiters were the ones to pull me in.
Yeah, and you served on a number of ships, correct?
I did, yes.
And what did you do in the Navy?
So I was what they referred to as a gunner's mate, and so essentially that just comes down to shooting missiles off of destroyers.
Amazing.
You say that so casually, but that is pretty amazing. What was that experience like?
You know, quite eye-opening. It was really great. I think the best part about being in the military as a woman is it really just opens up doors for leadership opportunities. And I think that's really what that role did for me.
And so has that impacted your education journey now that you are out of the Navy right now?
Absolutely. I think I'm able to kind of step into school even as an older student with just a different foot forward, and also use some of that leadership to kind of help some of my peers and just stay on the right direction of where I want to go.
And Santasia, we've been discussing all the sacrifices that members of our armed services make to serve our country. Can you describe some that you've had to make?
Yeah, so I do have 2 children, and I think that's the biggest part. They are a part of the systems, and they do have to move a lot for deployments. Sometimes, when they don't understand why or they're not ready to. And so I've made a lot of sacrifices, I think, leaving my family for deployments and things like that.
What is that like when you have to say, I got to go away for a while, and not just a couple days, but for a while?
It can be tough, especially, you come back and you see your kids. For many members, it can be 8 months to a year at a time, and so you come back and you leave your kiddo a certain way, and when you come back, it's kind of feels like a different child that you're coming back to. So a lot of beginnings and endings, I feel like, happen a lot in the military.
And what keeps you motivated?
I think just like I said, I think that's what pushed me to go, is just being a part of something and knowing that it's for a greater cause, and my kids as well.
This episode about Memorial Day, or at least inspired by Memorial Day, so I have to ask, what does Memorial Day mean to you?
I think the biggest thing is it's a time for self-reflection, not only of my own sacrifices, but as well as the people who have fallen because of their sacrifice, but also those who are still dealing with their silent wounds because of their sacrifice.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit of a layered question. We mentioned just earlier that Memorial Day is often the kickoff to summer. There's lots of celebrations happening. And then at the same time, being in news and media, we see lots of people visiting cemeteries and really reflecting on the members of the military that they've lost in their lives. What do you think about just the juxtaposition of those two things happening at the same time on the same day?
I think they can go hand in hand. It is important to be able to celebrate life and be grateful for the things that we do have because of those people that sacrifice. But I think it is also important to remember why we have this day.
Yeah.
And when we did this episode last year, we did have some people say, well, what about the women in military? And what are some of the unique things, because you're a woman in service, what are some of the differences that people may not really get?
I think the important thing to remember is that with women being able to be in the military, it is proof that there is movement towards gender equality and empowerment. But I wouldn't say that we're 100% there while you're in. It can still be very much so viewed as a man's world, if you will. And so I think those are some of those differences, is we're still working through some of those things.
And are you seeing us move toward the goal lines, or have you seen some improvement throughout your career?
I would think so. I definitely do. Yeah.
All right. That ends us on a hopeful note. MSU Denver student and Navy veteran Santasia Jovell, thank you so much for joining us for this Real Talk.
Thank you, guys.
And this Real Talk continues with more powerful personal stories.
Coming up, we'll hear from a service member who struggled after leaving active duty but found joy and new purpose in a new hobby. This is Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. Welcome back to Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. I'm Colorado Public Radio's Nathan Fernando Frescas.
And I'm Denver7's Micah Smith. This Memorial Day, thousands of Americans will gather at cemeteries laying wreaths and flowers on the graves of service members.
On this episode of Real Talk, we continue to honor the service and sacrifices of our armed service members, sharing their stories and what this holiday means to them. Last year, during an episode of Real Talk honoring veterans, we talked to 2 members of the Wounded Warrior Project.
Marine Corps veteran Zach Tidwell shared his struggles with mental health, and James Herrera, who's the Vice President of Physical Health and Wellness for the Wounded Warrior Project, shared resources and support.
The interview is very powerful, but we want to warn you it does include mentions of suicide. Zach, I want to start with you. What was your time like in the Marine Corps?
So I had an interesting 4 years. That's pretty typical for an enlisted Marine, but I was a machine gunner with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, and I deployed twice. I never saw combat, but I was an infantry Marine. I was a machine gunner. So played dress up for war all the time and never went to war, thankfully, but I had some head injuries and other things happen that led me down the path that you guys were just talking about.
Would you mind sharing just a little bit more about what caused you to retire?
Yeah, so I lost my sight after I got out. On my second deployment, I found out that my now ex-wife was having an affair with someone else, and I was not in a great spot when I came back from that deployment, and so I decided it was time to be done with the Marines and move on to the next thing. And so I got out and started going to school for nursing and working at a local hospital here in Colorado.
I think the thing that I'm hearing from a lot of veterans is that there's this fear to talk about what you're talking about right now. The fact that you may have felt close to suicide, that you may have not felt okay. And the stigma that goes behind that. Why are you so open to speaking about this? This is something that is personal to anyone, but to people in the military can be so much more private.
It's obviously there's the social taboo of it, but when you're especially in an infantry unit, like I've thought about this a lot, obviously looking back now, it serves its purpose while you're there, and you learn to just suck it up, and you develop that grit to get through whatever it is that you're presented with, and you will get the job done. And that's an awesome life skill to have, but I think on the flip side of that, at least for me personally, my coping skills weren't there. And so I shot myself in the head about 9 months after I got out because I was struggling. And again, looking back, it was, I think because I knew that I was the kind of person that does just get through everything and I will figure a way to get through it, I thought that I could handle the depression and alcoholism on my own. And those are two different things looking back, but that didn't register to me then. And so that really caught up with me, and getting to the point where I'm open about it now has been a process. I used to get sweaty talking about it, and I didn't like talking about it and wouldn't open up to people about it. I would just say, oh, it was a head injury.
Right.
But the discussion would always lead down the path of like, so did you get blown up in Iraq? And I'd be like, mm-mm. And they'd be like, so Afghanistan then? And I'm like, no, I didn't see combat. And they're like, well, what was it? And then I would get negative reactions when I would have an outburst of like, I shot myself in the head. And so going to therapy over the last several years, I still do, even though I'm in a better place now. That's been huge. And then getting into adaptive sports, that was being around other veterans who were adapting to this change. Obviously, I'd woken up from being taken off life support after a suicide attempt, and now I'm blind and deaf in 1 year.
Right. So
it got lower, but getting, I think 8.5 months after that, I was on a mountain trying to snowboard again, and I couldn't cook for myself or anything, but I was trying to snowboard. And being up there with other blind vets and those connections that you make at the dinner table in the evening after you're off the mountain and things like that kind of opened up to where I was like, okay, I'm gonna own it.
Thank you for sharing that aspect of your life. It is such an important part of why we're here doing this episode today.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that Zach just said, being around other veterans, I think that's huge. James, I want to get you in on this conversation about Wounded Warrior Project and everything that you're doing to try to provide that space.
Absolutely. So our mission at Wounded Warrior Project is to honor and empower wounded veterans. As you mentioned, we've celebrated our 20th anniversary, and so for the last 20 years, we've been providing programs and support for post 9/11 veterans, their families, and their caregivers. We've got life-changing services in mental and brain health, in career counseling, in benefits, in physical health and wellness, in advocacy, and then in long-term rehabilitative care. Zach's story isn't uncommon. We look at the data from our annual Warrior Survey, and 1 out of 4 veterans in the last year has had suicidal ideations. I mean, it's a tragedy for certain. And so we want to be around for the long haul. We want to continue to provide that life-saving and changing support to folks like Zach because it's a passion for what we do.
James, what's the first thing you do when someone reaches out to you saying, I'm in this space and I need some help?
You know, the first thing I or any of my teammates at Wounded Warrior Project do is listen. We want to be there and really get an understanding of where the veteran is at and what that hierarchy of needs for them looks like. You know, if it's an issue like homelessness, you know, that's something that is taking precedent, and we've got to address that situation immediately, because we're not going to be able to get to the other stuff, the mental health issues. There's things that, you know, sort of take precedent in the order of care. So I want to listen to them. I want to hear what they've got going on. I want to determine what particular programs and services our teams have to offer that we can get that veteran the best care at the right time and improve their quality of life.
Maybe like adaptive sports?
Absolutely, man. I love me some adaptive sports. You know, I work with all of our physical health and wellness teams, and adaptive sports is such an amazing thing. You know, Zach mentioned how empowered he felt. You know, he was out there snowboarding. I actually heard a rumor that he jumped out of a plane not too long ago.
Yeah.
Really?
So
All right.
adaptive sports is truly an empowering experience for a veteran. You know, those with physical injuries, they find new and creative ways to be able to participate, to have that sense of accomplishment and camaraderie, build skills, and it truly is a game changer for them.
The independence is huge. Like getting a sense of that again is after something that's so life-changing, where like, yeah, I didn't know how to cook for myself, but you put a radio in my ear and you throw me on a snowboard. If you get me to the mountain, like I can get down it. And yeah, that's huge.
I will say, hearing Zach's story is extremely powerful. I remember it bringing tears to my eyes because you can tell it's still really raw, and you could feel him being vulnerable in the moment and sharing just where he was mentally. But then Nathan, seeing where he is now is just a beautiful sight to witness.
And that string of hope that he had, that link that he kept saying, there is hope out there, and there are services for veterans who are in that situation to find help when they need it. It's such a powerful interview.
It is powerful, and it's a good reminder of mental health. You know, there are a lot of things that our active duty service members are going through, our veterans are going through, and a lot of these battles are hidden. They're not on a physical battlefield. They're in the minds of very, very special, brave humans in our country. And so I'm just so grateful to him for sharing that story with us. And it's one that's going to stick with me for a really long time.
Yeah, same.
And that is this week's episode of Real Talk with Denver7 and CPR News. Every week, we'll be having a real talk on issues that impact Coloradans who are often overlooked.
You can find all of our shows on denver7.com/realtalk or at cpr.org/realtalk. Have a great day.